The NFL offseason started earlier than expected as Detroit Lions quarterback Matthew Stafford was traded to the LA Rams for Jared Goff, two first-round picks, and a third-round pick. Hello and welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm Logan Bourandas alongside Matt Szczypiorski and Evan Lasek. As we look further into this trade, was it worth it for the Rams to make the move, and are they now Super Bowl contenders?
Well, I think in terms of where they are now, I think the Rams felt that they were an impact quarterback away from being in the NFC's elite. And, they had the number one defense last season. Sean McVay is considered an offensive wizard. He's got above average receivers and a decent O-line and run game. They just felt like they were a quarterback away, and Jared Goff did not play that well this past season. And then furthermore, the Rams were in a really tough cap situation, and Stafford is on the back end of his massive deal that will only be about $43 million cap hit over the next 2 years combined. And then Goff was over $100 million over the next 4 seasons. And, it is interesting, however, that Sean McVay has a personal vendetta against making first-round picks. The last first-round pick the Rams had was Jared Goff back in 2016. He was the number one overall pick. They have not made a first-round pick since then, and they won't have one until 2024 as of now.
Yeah, I got to agree there. I think at first I really didn't like this trade for them. I thought they kind of gave up way too much for just one player, especially a quarterback at age 32. But Matt Stafford, he truly is one of the better, most not talked about quarterbacks in the NFL. I think he's very underappreciated for what he's done. He's very clearly a step above Jared Goff in talent-wise, and I think. But what you said, the first-round picks, I do think that's going to hurt them in the future. They don't really draft in the first round. They kind of just trust these players that they have on their roster. They trust free agency to make their team good, and they don't build young talent with their team. They just keep rebuilding, bring in new players, and McVay's able to adapt them to his scheme for the Los Angeles Rams. Now, Jared Goff, as I was saying before, he wasn't the best player for that team, but this puts them in win now mode. His penalty is not as bad as it would be, say, if you give up somebody like Carson Wentz. Jared Goff's dead money was only, I believe, $20 million. So that's not too bad compared to what they're bringing in, especially because they don't have a lot of people under giant contracts.
It does seem that the Rams are now going all in and have something against having first-round picks. The Lions are getting a former number one overall pick in Goff. Is he their new quarterback of the future with new head coach Dan Campbell and new GM Brad Holmes running the show? Or will the Lions look to draft one in the NFL draft?
I think this is going to be a really good filler piece right now. I don't think Jared Goff is the answer there. He is a system quarterback, as I like to call him. And in McVay's system, he just didn't work anymore. He just played right at that line. He didn't over-exceed at all, but he never really dropped under that line. He just didn't exceed expectations for the Los Angeles Rams. Now in Detroit, you got a new regimen coming in, and I don't think Jared Goff's going to be the answer there for a long time. They may not be able to see a quarterback that they want this early in the draft, which is why they went after Goff. He's still at 25 years old. He's locked up on a deal, but maybe they just don't think they're going to get their guy this draft, and I think that's why they went with Goff. So maybe for this year, maybe next year, they'll use him until a guy they really like that they know they can get in the draft falls to them.
Yeah, I agree with you, Evan. I see Jared Goff as more of a system quarterback, and you could attribute most, if not all, of his success to Sean McVay's genius. He seems like a game manager to me, kind of reminds me a little bit of Alex Smith in that way. And, they set they set themselves up for a great future there in Detroit with a multitude of first-round picks from LA, as we mentioned earlier. And, it's a great situation for a new regime there, new general manager, new head coach. But my bold prediction for this Jared Goff Detroit Lions marriage is that I would be shocked if the Lions didn't end up trading Jared Goff, and I would be surprised if he was still in the Lions roster in September. Goff and his contract just don't really make sense right now for Detroit. They are in rebuild mode, as we've talked about, and they need to embrace the tank, I think. And I think Goff is good enough to keep them out of the bottom quarter of the league, and I don't think that's what they want. I think they want to continue to rebuild. I could see possibly the Indianapolis Colts as one of the main destinations for Jared Goff.
We'll see how long Jared Goff remains with the Lions. Moving from these two teams to now a wider scale around the league, how does this trade impact the landscape of the rest of the league?
Well, Logan, the main thing I'm looking at in terms of impact around the league is the situation in Houston with Deshaun Watson. If the Rams are willing to send 2 first-round picks plus a decent quarterback in Jared Goff and other draft capital for Matt Stafford, the Texans should be asking for much more for Watson. Reportedly they're asking for 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and 2 defensive stars, not just starters, stars. So it's clear they're trying to maximize Deshaun Watson's value, as they should. I'm worried this trade could really hurt Watson's market, though, because I'm not sure how many teams are going to be willing to, give up that much for Deshaun Watson. He's obviously a great quarterback, an elite quarterback, a quarterback that will change your franchise, but I don't know how many teams are going to be willing to give up that much for him. And while we have seen the Texans trade a great player for nothing better than a bag of chips before, this is a new regime. They will be inclined to maximize Watson's value, I believe.
I got to agree there. I think teams are really going to be, this really did set the price for other teams around the league. We didn't know the Rams were looking for a quarterback at this time. So that's kind of eye-opening at what other teams can possibly trade for a quarterback like Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, possibly. Any quarterback could be really going at this point in the season, at this point in their careers. But this does set a great price. Deshaun Watson is clearly so much better than Jared Goff. He's on a whole nother level, but this could scare other teams away from giving up that much for a quarterback. But I think it honestly worked out for both teams. This opens up a lot of franchises looking at different quarterbacks, such as the Colts, such as the Washington football team, teams like that may not be able to have their guy right now that are looking to give up something for them.
It should be interesting to see not only how this affects the Rams Super Bowl hopes, but also the Watson rumors as well. That's all the time we have for this edition of Penn State Sports Night. For Matt Szczypiorski and Evan Lasek, I'm Logan Bourandas, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching this edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also, follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.